In this video, I will show you how to create this. Alright, so that's a pretty cool Halloween special. We are going to do this entire effect using Adobe After Effects. I'm going to show you how to add fog to your mirror, how to make text appear out of nothing, and how to make those nice little water drips as an extra detail come off of your text. If you want to work with the exact same files as me, you can do so by clicking the link in the description below, and you can download those for free. Okay, so here we are in Adobe After Effects, and of course the first thing that we will need to do is import our footage. So I have my footage right here, which I will drop in the project manager and then drag and drop it into a new composition just like so. So I'll scrub a little bit forward where I want to start, maybe around here, and press B on the keyboard and then right click Trim Comp to Work Area just to shorten that part a little bit. So I walk up to the mirror and I turn on the light and I'm preparing to wash my face. And when I go down, I want the mirror to start fogging up. So what I will do here, from the second that I start like lowering my eyes, let's say around here, I'm going to put a marker on my footage just so I know where I want it to start fogging up. So I will click the asterisk button on my numpad and that will add a little marker here just so I know. Once the fog is there, text will appear on the mirror and the light will start flickering, as you can see. So I will create a new adjustment layer and this is going to be my fog. I'm going to trim this until this marker and then I will use my pen tool to create a nice mask just the size of my mirror. And so here you can do a few things. You can either go to the effects and presets. If you don't see that, go to Window, Effects and Presets and use the fast box blur. And blurring up kind of resembles fog. So there we go, we have some blur. The only problem here is it looks too perfect. And in real life, if you're looking at your mirror, you will see some smudges, maybe fingerprints, maybe wipe patterns, how you cleaned it. You will see some kind of texture in that. So that's not exactly what we want. Instead, I'm going to be using the effect compound blur. Another problem we have is that we see that me coming in front of the mirror is also being blurred. So I don't want that. For that, I will duplicate my original footage, Ctrl D while having it selected, and bring it up top. I'm also going to trim it just at the same point of my adjustment layer and double click on it so it opens into a new window as a layer. Then I will choose the roto brush tool, which is right here, click on that, and I'm just going to roto brush myself out. If you get this yellow warning here, make sure that you're using full resolution in your main composition. That way roto brush will work a lot better. So now we can continue and just select everything that we want to have rotoed out. Hold Alt if you want to delete parts and then click and drag. So now I will click and hold on the roto brush tool and then choose Refine Edge tool. Make sure that your size of the brush is big enough. If not, you can always go to Window, Brushes, increase the size. Sometimes this can mess up a little bit and then go back to the Refine brush. Now you can adjust the diameter of this exact brush. So make it a little bit bigger, just like that. And I'm just going to paint around the edge of my hair. And you will see that now everything that is white will be shown, everything that is black won't. So this is a perfect roto. So now I'm just going to play it forward by pressing the space bar and I'm just going to wait until everything looks good. Once I'm under the mirror, I do not need to rotoscope it further because I won't be visible in the mask. Then press the space bar again once you're out of frame and we can trim this up until here. So I'm going to hold Ctrl, Shift and D, split my layer and delete the last part. So now I just have this part being rotoscoped. I'm going to make sure that I'm also going to freeze this roto. So make this window a little bit bigger until you see the freeze button here and click that. Wait until it's frozen. That will just speed up the entire process. By the way, if you want to finish your videos with some really cool templates or packs, you can always check out filmbro.com. It's a website where you can download free templates and affordable templates for your projects to really spice things up. And we are also quality checked by Adobe themselves, so all our templates will work flawlessly in Premiere or Adobe After Effects. Check it out. I co-founded this website, so of course I'm pretty proud of our work. Link is in the description below. Alright, so once it's frozen, we can close this layer right here. And now we can focus on our roto. So right here we have our roto. I'm going to use the effect from effects and presets called fill, which will fill my color for my roto. So I'm going to drag and drop that on there and make sure that the color is black. Click OK. Then I'm going to right click and create a new solid. And this is going to be my texture. Click OK. On this, I will apply the fractal noise effect and apply that right here. And now you will see that we have black and white. In a second, I will explain why, but I'm going to just uncheck this for now. Go to my fog, press M on the keyboard, click on the mask, Ctrl C to copy it, go back to your texture, Ctrl V to paste it, and now enable it again. So now we have the texture exactly on our mirror. I'm going to use this texture just to create imperfections. You can also use an actual image of finger smudges and wipes, but as I don't have a texture for that right now, I will just show you how to create this entirely in Adobe After Effects. So play around with the fractal type just to get a pretty dramatic look here. You can increase the scale a little bit in the transform, play a little bit with complexity if you would like, and drag it under your roto. The reason why we have brought our roto to black is everything that is black in this shot right here is going to show our original video. Everything that is going towards white is going to blur up our mirror a lot more. In the roto brush tool, I'm just going to feather things up a little bit, something like this, and then go back to my texture. For the texture, you can always click on your fractal noise and go to edit, duplicate it, and then change it, for example, to a multiply. And then just click on the transform and scale it completely differently. That way you get more variation in your shot. You can also play with the brightness and contrast to get different type of results. I'm going to make it rather bright so everything appears quite blurry. Something like this looks good, so I'm going to then select my solid and my rotos layer both combined. I'm also going to trim my texture just to the point where we actually start, something like this. And then select both of these layers, layer, pre-compose this, and move all the attributes into a new composition. This is going to be my texture. Okay. So now I'm going to disable this layer just so we do not see it and go back to my fog layer. And here we can see that we can choose a blur layer. For this, I'm going to use this texture. And straight away, you can see that now we have a lot more defined stuff in our mirror effect, which looks really cool. Of course, you can play with the blur amount, so maybe something like 100 is more than enough. And then go to a moment where I actually look back in the mirror, like right here, and click on the stopwatch to create a keyframe. To reveal the keyframe, you can press U on the keyboard, and now we go back to the beginning and set our value here for the blur to 0. That way it's gradually going to move in. For our last keyframe, I'm going to right-click, Keyframe Assistance, Easy Ease, just to get it to come to a slow stop. And I'm also going to change my resolution back to 3rd, just so we can preview things a lot quicker. Now I'm going to press space, and we get something like this. So next we need our text to appear in the mirror. So I'm going to choose my text tool right here, and I will write, I am watching you. Then hold Ctrl, press A to select all of the text and make sure that we're going to increase the size. I can also see that my text is overlapping, so on the second value here, I'm going to make sure that horizontal spacing becomes a little bit bigger. I'm also going to center outline it just like this and make it as big as you want. I'm also using the font Chiller, which gives us this horror vibe, which looks really cool. Make sure that the text color is black, as this is also going to make sure that we are going to have a transparent part. I'm also going to add a subtle, fast box blur onto my text. Just something like 1 pixel to soften it up a little bit, and that will integrate it a lot better. Next, I'm searching the simple choker effect and applying that to my text. Here we can choke our matte, and if we are going to lower this value or increase this value, you can see that we're adding or shrinking our text. So we want to shrink our text until we do not see it anymore, like right here. So I'm going to head over to this time here and click on the stopwatch for the choker matte. And then further into time, I'm going to set it back to 0, just so we reveal our text like it's fading in on the mirror, which looks really cool. Again, we can right click the last keyframe and easy ease that animation so it comes to a slower stop. We can also duplicate our fast box blur and place it behind the simple choker, so again we're blurring up things and it's going to look a little bit more integrated. Next, we can toggle the switches until you see this option here to turn it into a 3D layer, and now you can just slightly rotate it just so it fits a little bit better with our actual perspective of our shot. This is not necessary as it's pretty subtle, but just so you know. Then I'm going to copy or cut my text, so I'm going to hold Ctrl X, go back into my texture and paste it right here. So this way it's in the texture and it appears as we have black text all of a sudden. Press U on the keyboard to make sure that we get this really cool result. So now if we go back to our main composition, we can see that it fades in and all it's doing is revealing the original image. But make sure that if you go in here, the keyframes are not affected too much. So I think I have to bring them a little bit more to the front. Go back to your original composition and now you can see that we get something like this. Looks really cool. The only problem is the text is not very readable. So for that, I'm just going to create a new adjustment layer and I'm going to rename this to exposure. This time I'm going to toggle the switches and use the track matte option to choose my texture. Then click once on this icon until you see Luma Matte and now apply the exposure effect to that mask or to that layer. And now if we increase it, we will start to see we can read our text a little bit better. So click on the stopwatch, go to the beginning and set it to 0 so we have a gradual fade in. And again, you can trim this layer up until here. And now you can read your text a little bit better. If you want it to appear a little bit faster, you can just drag in this keyframe to speed up the animation. I want to be able to read it when I appear here. And you can always jump back in and reposition it, maybe make it smaller. I'm placing it over my head, hair and t-shirt, and there will be places that it's better to read our text. If you want for the exposure, I'm going to add in another ellipse tool and I'm just going to expose it just on this area. So press F on the keyboard to feather this mask quite a bit, and that way it's a little bit better integrated. For the exposure, press U on the keyboard to reveal the keyframes, go to the last keyframe and maybe increase it until you can read your text as good as possible. Then I'm going to select all of my layers, layer, pre-compose this, and this is going to be my effects comp. Then I just want to play a little bit with my fading here, because I'm using an actual light to dim my scene, but as you can see it's fading off and fading on. I do not want that, so what I will do is I'm going to split my layer each time that I have light, go to the moment where it's black, and I just want to have this instant transition to black light. Boom, it's black. Here it's starting fading in again, so I'm Ctrl Shift D to split it, and then right here I'm going to trim it and move it over. Same thing here. And delete this little part. I'm going to trim this a little bit shorter and bring these two over. Delete the entire last part, and then I will go all the way till the beginning, duplicate this footage and bring it on top. And just right after we have this light right here, just on these moments right here, we also see that we need to rotoscope ourselves out, so we can do that later on. So now we can go back into our effect comp and check everything here. Make sure that at the first frame the exposure is set to 0 so it actually fades in. And now we can go back into our texture mode where we want to add some raindrop effects on top of our text. The way I did this is using my pen tool while having nothing selected in my layers, and I just draw a line going downwards. Then I will check stroke and give it a black stroke and make it as wide as you want. And then we can open up the options for this shape layer and go into the shape, stroke, make sure that we have a round cap here. And then I'm also going to add a trim path. For the end, I'm going to set it to 0, click on the keyframe, move a little bit further into time and set it to 100%. Right click on this keyframe and easy ease. We can then go into the graph editor and slow it even more at the end. So it actually ramps down, because as water droplets are going down, they're actually slowing down near the end and then stopping all of a sudden. So this looks perfect. I'm then going to trim this to its exact length, just so I have a better indication of how it should look. Then I'm also going to search for the effect linear wipe and apply that to my stripe. Set it to 180 in angle and then increase the transition until we cut off a little bit of the top part here. Then fade it on, just so we get something like this. Next, I'm going to search for the effect turbulence displacement, which will give us this water droplet effect where it's actually swirling around. You can play with the complexity or with the size and find something that you're satisfied with. Something like this looks great. So now you can click on this and place it wherever you want. Then duplicate it and place it somewhere else. If you want, you can press G on the keyboard and click on one of these points and then move it up to change the vibe. You can also even change the thickness of the stroke and then duplicate it as many times as you want and create some variation here and there. I'm placing this on the thicker parts of the text so it looks realistic, and maybe like right here and one right here and maybe one more right here. Once you're satisfied, we can now adjust the timing a little bit just by playing and placing them in different positions. So now we have the text appearing and some water droplets falling, and as you can see, everything that is black will stay in our frame. Select all of your water droplets and make sure to extend this layer all the way till the end of your composition. So if now we go back to our effects comp, you will see that we have water droplets appearing from our text. So this is exactly how I did that. Go back to your final composition where we did the lighting effects. If you do not have actual light in your scene, you can simply use the effect exposure and apply that to your scene. Click on the stopwatch, go one frame further, set it to, for example, -5 or even -10. Go one frame further and set it back to 0. Then you can hold or press U on the keyboard to reveal the keyframes and do that as many times as you want. You can even extend the blackness, so copy this frame and put it right here. And that way we have black, a little bit white, copy these keyframes, paste it, and like this you also get a flicker. And playing around with the timing will give you your desired result. So if you don't have lights, do it this way. Next, what we need to do is, of course, add a little bit of grading here. So I'm going to create a new adjustment layer and I'm going to apply the Lumetri color effect. I'm going to play with the curves here and I'm just going to darken my darker tones and increase my highlights a little bit, just like this. I'm also going into creative and lowering my saturation quite a bit. And then for the shadows, I'm going for more a blue, greenish kind of vibe here, which gives us this really horror vibe here. We can then also press T on the keyboard and click the stopwatch for the opacity for this layer and fade it in when our text appears. So right here, we have nothing, so we want to set the opacity to 0. And as we bend over and as the text appears on the screen, we get this really horror kind of color grade in our scene. And from here, you will need to fiddle around and get some better results here and there. So for my texture, I do think it's a little bit too intense. So I'm going for my texture of the fractal noise here. And I'm going to lower my contrast levels quite a bit. So I get something more like this. It's a little bit more subtle. And I think that looks better. For the water, if you think it's a little bit too perfect, what I also did is go into the texture And all the way on top, I'm creating a duplication of this texture of the fractal noise, place it all the way on top, delete one of them, and then go into one of them, or actually reset the settings. And then for the scale, setting it something like 10, we get these very small kind of droplet-like effects. And we can now just simply change the mode to screen. And also track matte it. And then press T on the keyboard and maybe lower the opacity a little bit. So we get something like this. And then use the track matte option to choose our text just so it appears only on the text, and then reveal the text again, of course. Play with the opacity if you think it's a little bit too intense, but that way our text isn't going to be really perfect. Play with the contrast if you think it's a little bit too obvious, and lower the brightness just so we have a few droplets here and there. And that just spices things up just a little bit. Next, what I did is I'm also going to choose my blur layer, and I'm just going to add in another mask because I do not want this part to be blurred too much. So I'm just going to select my text, hold Ctrl, and then drag out. It's just something like this. Press F on the keyboard and change this to an intersect, and then feather it to your likings. Something like 350 should work well. Then go to the moment where we have the red light. And all I did in here was use an AI image of a monster. So I generated this image using AI, and it's just a silhouette of a figure, scary figure. And I'm going to place that in my scene right here. I'm then going to mask it roughly out until I get something like this. And I used a key light to mask out all the blue parts. So apply that to the scene and choose this color, blue. And then I also added the extract effect, which will take care of my highlights. So if we make this a little bit bigger, we take out all the white parts like this, and then hold Alt, and then bring out this bottom one to soften all these parts out. And you can play with it to your likings. So key it out just like you want. Then I'm also adding a fast box blur here to soften my creature out a little bit, and then size it up how you want. Place it over here and then disable it. As you can see, I'm still here in the mirror, so all I did was create a quick mask silhouette of myself, or you can use the rotoscoping technique. And just subtract it from the mask. Press F on the keyboard and increase it a little bit because we have blur in the background. Then I'm going to pre-compose this, move all the attributes, and this is going to be monster. And then copy this mask here from the blur map and paste it also here. So we just cut off where he's appearing behind the mirror. We can always jump back into this composition, and what I also did was create a new solid layer and give it a red color, and then click on the pen tool, uncheck this layer, and give him some eyes. Just like this. And there we go. Press M on the keyboard twice, and then maybe make the eyes quite a bit smaller, just like so. And now we can just duplicate this mask, double click it, and move it over so we have two eyes. And that way we have some nice eyes for our demon. And I also added in some glow, which I applied to this layer, and lower the threshold, duplicate the glow, increase the radius, and lower the intensity on both of these. If you want to see more what it's doing and you don't want to see the mask, you can toggle this here, and that will disable the mask for now. And that way we can see if we like the glow or it's not intense enough or stuff like that. And there we go. So that looks pretty cool. So go back to your effects comp, and now we have this monster demon in the background. And from here, it's all grading. So we want to make it look as cool as possible. Of course, I want the monster to only appear when the red light is here. So here we have the monster, and all I'm going to do on this last frame here is make sure that it doesn't fade in, but it's instantly red. Trim the comp work area until here. And then to top it all off, all you can do is create a new solid layer and choose a black from your scene, click OK. And then just create a quick silhouette of some kind of monster. Press F on the keyboard and feather the mask quite a bit. And then make it as big as you want. Place it over here, press M on the keyboard, click on the mask path, hold shift and press page down to move 10 frames, and then move it over so we have a quick wipe of some kind of shadow that is passing my shot. And of course you want to press T on the keyboard and lower the opacity just to keep it subtle. And that way, just before the light flickers, we have a monster shadow kind of passing. And then to top it all off, I use sound effects. For example, when I flick the light on, when I start the water, and then some scary sound effects and cinematic soundscapes to top it all off. For that, I used artlist.io. Link is in the description. Alright, so that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give this video a like and be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell if you want to see my upcoming videos. Maybe you want to check out my last video, which will appear right here. I made a really cool video where I used my car to drive through a real-life Hot Wheel loop. Alright, and until next time, create epic videos.